So I found out what the issue was with the deployment I was just running. So uh, what had happened was the Kafka Connect instance had taken a little bit longer to come up than I was expecting. So when I went into this control center here, it had 0 Connect clusters. It was just taking it a little bit longer to spin up than I'd expected, spinning up quite a lot of stuff. This is quite an old MacBook as well, so it's took a little while to get the Kafka topics up and running and get all the clusters working. Since then, the Connect clusters come up. Sorry, the Connect instance has come up. But the problem that I now have is that the job that I previously had running has finished executing, and that means that this doesn't have a configured Connect instance. So it's no hassle to fix, quite straightforward. So I can just go into my project. I have a job here, which is the job that goes away and configures the Connect instance, and I can just run this in, and then that should spin me up a Connect configuration job in the background here, which should then in turn also pick up my logs, my Connect instance. There we go. So I now have a MongoDB Kafka connector. So proof is in the pudding. So we just go over here and try running this again. So I'll try running one that will spike a lung check again. So this should now, if I give it a couple of seconds, set a couple of second delay into the processor so it kind of replicates more complicated logic. And okay, so that's now picked up that job. The payments processor, which I'll demo and I'll show the code in a minute, has noticed that something's turned up on the Kafka topic. It's had a look at it. It's run a LUN check against the creditor field, and then it's decided, okay, this payment type's a credit card. So just so you know, I'm not being disingenuous. When that went in there, that was pending. Payment type was null. So it's run some sort of fairly basic checks and put something in there. So that's the kind of end-to-end flow of this project. So that's it kind of running. So I'll just briefly go through what's in the project itself as well. So this has been, I've split this up to be a mono repo that's supposed to be relatively self-explanatory. So the idea is that you can come into this README here, and it will tell you the high-level architecture. This is the high-level architecture, so this doesn't detail the actual proper flows. It just says this is the rough flow of where things are going. Then gives you your prerequisites, things you need to download, things you need to make sure you've got installed. It gives you a bit of ancillary information around what it's going to install, as well as part of the Skaffold file, Skaffold release. Adding a PAT token to the root is not something I'm hugely comfortable about at the moment. This is, as I said, this is a POC. There are probably better ways of doing this, which I might investigate if I ever get time to actually do this properly. And then run Skaffold dev. I need to append a profile to this because I've changed a few things around, and you actually have to specify the profile you want it to run as well, which is slightly annoying. And then it just tells you everything it's going to spin up, gives you a few examples that you can run with it, and then gives you a link to the tutorials and stuff. When you then dig into this, there are a couple of different sections. The first most notable thing is the Skaffold YAML file. So this defines what's going to be deployed. So in this case, Connect server, the services that we're going to build, and the various different definitions that it needs to be able to get that across the line, the deployment methodologies, the deployment the Helm releases that it requires to be deployed. Some shonky stuff in here, but this is an internal database, so this is never exposed outside of this project. And it's complete teardown. Again, that should be coming from a secret somewhere. And then the YAML definitions. I'm going to Helmify some of these as well, but these are just basic definitions for deploying a Kafka cluster and to deploy the services. So here you can see Skaffold dev loop running. So these services are available to modify as well. Oh, sorry, so profiles here as well. This is the one that we're currently running, which port forwards the control center and port forwards MongoDB for convenience. You don't actually need to do that, but I could have put them out via the gateway as well, but I didn't really want to expose them that way. And there's another couple of profiles here as well that do a few different things. This code's on GitHub, by the way, so if anyone shares a GitHub ID, I'm more than happy to share the code base. It's in a private repo at the moment. I'll make it public once it's fully finished, and I've made sure there are no secrets and pat tokens anywhere in here, which there aren't, but I just want to double check before I make it public. So documentation, which contains some plant UML diagrams at a high level that describe the state of the system. Infrastructure, which is the definitions for the Glue gateway and for the Kafka cluster. Some ancillary convenience scripts, which can now probably be got rid of actually on a MongoDB playground, which you can query via the endpoint I just showed you that's port forwarded. And then the main meat of it, which is the structures, the services themselves. So these are the first two are. Sorry, this service is a Spring Boot microservice, HTTP endpoint on it. This is a models package, which is deployed to the Maven repo that I have set up in GitHub, in GitHub packages. Payments processor, which should really be a streams processor, but I just wanted to fiddle around with Spring Kafka and find out how that was working as well. And then a Golang payment status service, because I wanted to make sure it was polyglot and have a bit of fiddle around with it. One of the things that's most notable with Skaffold is if I go into this, so let's say just for argument's sake, I'll just change it. It will watch this on anything, but if I just go and change one line in this Docker file, it will watch this project and it will rebuild this Docker container for me, and it will go away and do this might break, by the way. Sorry if it does. It will go away and do a rebuild of that container, and it will re-push it to my local instance. So that means that I have a fully functioning system with an API gateway definition with all of its dependencies, and everything is ready to go. And I can work on it as a developer without affecting anyone else. And I can make changes to this and run it in a reasonably close to real world scenario. And if I take this to the kind of nth degree, I can actually use this as a discrete deployment unit, and I can push if I make changes here, those changes should be reflected in a very production-like sort of way, or at least as production-like as I can get on a local developer's laptop way, that I can then shift all the way through the pipeline. Using the profiles that I was talking about earlier on so there's a CI profile at the moment. This is not finished. This profile is not ready to go at all, but this profile is what I will then be looking to invoke when I get to the next stage, which is my GitHub Actions build. So this is GitHub Actions build, which will it does work, but I have one breaking change, so I can't demo it today. I'll maybe demo it at a later date once I've got this working properly. This will check out all the dependencies, set up the local repo, install Skaffold on the runner, and then it will run the profile I've just shown you here, or a subsequent profile based on what choices you want to make. And this is the last kind of bit of this little demo. The reason for wanting to have this in there is that the eventual kind of pipeline that I imagine this working through is going to be, your local dev machine is encapsulated. You don't have to have a development environment. You're not dependent on anyone else. You won't step on anyone else's toes, other than when you merge stuff. This will eventually run on pull request. So when you submit your pull request, it would then run through this pipeline, and at the end here should be a functional test and a benchmark, performance benchmarking test to make sure that no performance degradation has been introduced, and it still satisfies the functional requirements. Doesn't mean you won't have to do the other testing as well, but it would mean that this was kind of had additional assurances so you can fail fast, so that you can, and we can put quality gates and things like that in front of PRs on the actual code base people are working on, so you get a faster feedback loop to be able to understand when things are going wrong, and also to front load the testing cycle a bit and shift left. So there are a couple of other things I can show in here if people are interested, but I think I've probably run out of time. So that's my Skaffold demo. Thanks for watching.